You start your day as how you live your life. And for most people, the day starts too late with noise, rush, and reaction. But if you want to lead, grow, and thrive, you must master the morning, because mornings are where momentum is born. Waking up early isn't just about seeing the sunrise. It's about seeing yourself more clearly before the texts come in, before the emails hit, before the world tells you what you should do. You take that hour and say, this is mine. It's your space to get centered, to breathe deeply, to move your body, to prime your emotions, to set your direction. Success doesn't begin with a breakthrough. It begins with a pattern you repeat every day, especially when it's inconvenient. That alarm rings and the average person hits snooze. But you rise, not because it's easy, but because you've made a decision. That decision says, I run my life, not my feelings, not my fatigue, my excuses. Every time you beat the sun up, you win. You declare who you are, a leader of your own energy, a commander of your habits, an architect of your future. Because early morning hours are sacred. When it's quiet outside, it's loud inside. That's when your vision speaks. That's when your purpose becomes clear. High performers, no matter their field, guard their mornings. Why? Because they understand the power of a quiet, focused, intentional beginning. They know the world rewards those who prepare when no one's watching. It's not magic, it's mastery. You don't need more time. You need more commitment to the time you already have. So start simple. Get up, hydrate, move, breathe, express gratitude. Visualize your targets, stack those wins one after the other, because small wins compound. And remember, your morning starts the night before. The moment you choose to unplug, wind down, and honor your sleep, you're saying, tomorrow matters to me. My purpose is worth preparing for. You want a better day? Start by owning your morning. You want a better life? Start by changing your mornings. Discipline now equals freedom later. And once you master this, once you rise early, every day with purpose, your life will never be the same again. The way you begin your day has more power than most people realize. Your morning isn't just a routine, it's a launch pad. Every morning, you are either planting seeds of momentum or you are slipping into a pattern of passivity. And here's the truth. As the day begins, the demands don't slow down. If you don't choose your pace early, the day will choose it for you. That's why waking up early isn't just a lifestyle change, it's a strategic advantage. It sets the tone, it sets the rhythm. It builds psychological and emotional speed that carries into everything you do. Think about a race car. It doesn't start from the finish line. It builds momentum right off the grid. And that momentum determines the outcome of the race. Life works the same way. The first 60 to 90 minutes of your day are the starting grid, and you get to decide whether you're sluggishly rolling forward or launching like a rocket. And it starts with your choice to get up. That's the first micro win of the day, not because it feels good, not because you're fully rested, but because you've told your mind, I'm in charge here. When you wake up early, you enter your day before the world tries to steal it. No longer reacting to traffic, social media, obligations, or distractions. You are proactively choosing your mindset. You are shifting from survival to creation. You're no longer sprinting to catch up. You're walking with intent. Calm, focused, confident, and that energy becomes contagious. It pours into your relationships, your decisions, your performance, and your focus. You begin the day ahead instead of behind. And being ahead doesn't just feel better, it creates results. Momentum in the morning is emotional, it's physiological, it's strategic. When you move your body first thing, when you hydrate, breathe, and mentally set your intentions, you are literally shifting the chemical balance in your brain and nervous system. You release dopamine, norepinephrine, and serotonin, neurotransmitters that are tied to motivation, alertness, and mood. You are not just mentally waking up, you are chemically optimizing your ability to attack the day, and that's not a fluke. That's not luck, that's science, that's choice, that's power. Now, consider the opposite. Imagine waking up late, grabbing your phone, checking your messages, skipping breakfast, rushing to get ready, and arriving in the world already depleted. Kind of energy are you bringing into your goals, your team, your relationships? You're already in a deficit. And once the deficit begins, it compounds. That's what most people don't realize. Momentum compounds. And so does the lack of it. You win the morning, you create emotional carryover, a sense of pride, a sense of grounded power that stays with you. You made your bed. That's a win. You got your workout in. That's a win. You set your priorities for the day with intention. That's a win. These wins, though small in isolation, add up. They form the foundation of self-belief. They become the emotional capital you draw on when the day throws challenges at you, which it will. Life doesn't slow down. If you've built momentum, you don't need it to. You just keep going with drive, with direction, with clarity. Momentum is not hype. It's not motivation. It's movement consistently applied. That's why those who wake up early and own their mornings tend to feel more in control of their time. They think clearer. They're not scrambling from task to task. They've already built a psychological runway. They're already in flight before others have even gotten out of bed. And that edge, that ability to be ahead of your day, is where self-mastery begins. If you look at high-performing individuals across any field, business, athletics, creative arts, leadership, there's a common thread. They all have a morning routine. They all build momentum intentionally, not by accident. Not when they feel like it, but because they understand the psychology of performance. They understand that energy must be built, not waited on, and they're not searching for external motivation. They create their own internal ignition every single morning. That's the real purpose of waking up early, not to impress anyone, not to be trendy, but to master your own rhythm. Because when you wake up early and use that time wisely, your day becomes an extension of your inner power. You're no longer wondering what to do next. You already know. You already chose. You already committed. And now you're simply executing. When you build morning momentum, everything feels different. You make decisions faster. You speak more confidently. You handle resistance with less emotional reactivity. Why? Because you already faced resistance the moment your alarm went off. And you won. You said no to the comfort of your bed so you could say yes to the discomfort of growth. That choice, the first victory of the day, ripples into everything else. There's a reason why successful people fiercely protect their mornings. It's because they've learned through experience that productivity is not just about what you do. It's about how you feel while doing it. When you begin the day with movement, clarity, and intention, your feeling state shifts into peak performance. You're no longer just going through the motions. You're creating your day on purpose. You don't need to overhaul your life overnight. Start with your morning. Start with that first 10 minutes. Wake up a little earlier than usual. Stand up, move, breathe, ask yourself powerful questions. What am I grateful for? What do I want to accomplish today? Who do I need to show up for? How can I lead my energy, not follow it? These questions activate a part of you that's been waiting for direction, waiting for purpose, waiting for you to take command. Every day you wake up as a chance to create momentum. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present, fully aligned with the truth that your life is yours to lead. And it starts the moment you open your eyes, not when the emails start, not when the pressure builds. But right then, right at the beginning, because when you wake up early and use that time with intention, you're not just starting your day, you're setting the course for your entire life. You're stepping into the day like a leader, not a follower. You're not surviving. You're creating. Creation starts with momentum, real, intentional, powerful momentum built by you every single morning. Most people wake up and immediately give their mind away. The alarm goes off and they roll over to check their phone. Notifications, headlines, messages. They allow the outside world to dictate their emotional state before they've even taken their first conscious breath. What they don't realize is that the first few moments of your day are the most powerful. That's when your mind is most impressionable. It's not fully formed yet. It's soft clay. You can mold it or you can let the world stamp it with chaos, distraction, and anxiety. The difference between a reactive mind and a primed one is the difference between a day you lead and a day you chase. Your brain first thing in the morning is operating in what's called a theta state, a slower, more suggestible brainwave state. That's where learning, imagination, and subconscious programming are strongest. If you pour negativity into it, social media, drama, news, stress, comparison, you feed your subconscious with fragmentation. If you take those first moments and choose to prime your mind with intention, you're no longer reacting to the world. You're designing your state. You're telling your nervous system, this is the emotional gear I want to live in today. Priming your mind means deciding how you want to feel before the world has a say. It means breathing before scrolling, moving before consuming, centering before reacting. You wake up and the first thing you do is stretch, breathe deeply, hydrate, and set your intentions. You're setting your internal thermostat. You're not waiting for something outside you to make you feel motivated, focused, or grounded. You're generating it from within. That's real power because motivation fades, but a prime state sustains. You don't need to rely on willpower when you've already tuned your nervous system to a powerful frequency. There's a principle in psychology called emotional inertia. It says that whatever emotional state you start intends to carry throughout your day. That's why a stressful morning makes the whole day feel like a rush. But a calm, centered morning builds clarity, focus, and even resilience. When something difficult shows up later in the day, and it will, you're less likely to get thrown off because your emotional baseline was already set with strength. Priming your mind means choosing that baseline. It means practicing leadership over your psychology every single morning before anyone else gets a say in it. One of the most overlooked elements of this process is breathing. Deep, conscious breath immediately shifts your state. It signals to your body that you're safe. It lowers cortisol, increases oxygen to the brain, and brings you into presence. The world teaches us to chase productivity. Real productivity starts with presence, and presence is the result of a well-primed mind, not scattered and not overstimulated, but centered, focused, clear. Just 5 minutes of intentional breathing can do more for your day than an hour of rushed multitasking. Another core tool for priming your mind is gratitude, not as a concept, but as a practice. You deliberately focus on what you're thankful for first thing in the morning. You interrupt the brain's natural tendency to scan for problems. The mind, by default, looks for danger. It wants to protect you. But if left unchecked, that survival mechanism becomes a prison of fear and lack. Gratitude shifts the lens. It tells the mind, I'm safe, I'm resourced, I'm already winning. And when you start your day from a place of emotional sufficiency, you move differently. You don't chase as much. You create. Visualization is another powerful element of mental priming. Before the noise begins, close your eyes and see your day going the way you want it to. Not just the events, but the energy, the emotions, the posture you want to carry. Visualize yourself handling challenges with calm. Visualize yourself speaking with clarity, leading with strength, responding with grace. Your brain doesn't fully distinguish between imagination and reality. You rehearse a powerful day in your mind. You're rehearsing it in your nervous system too. And when those moments come, you're already ready, not because you got lucky, but because you trained for it. Mental priming is not about perfection. It's not about rigid routines or morning checklists that stress you out. It's about claiming the first few minutes of the day as sacred. You don't owe the world your attention the moment you wake up. You owe yourself your attention first. You owe yourself a moment of silence before the noise, a moment of stillness before the speed, a moment of self-command before you enter the battlefield of the day. And here's the deeper truth. How you start your day is how you build your life. Every day begins in reaction, then your entire life becomes a reaction. You're always responding, always catching up, always trying to make sense of things after they happen. But if your days begin with intention, if they begin with clarity, then you build a life of proactive creation. You become the author, not the editor. You become the artist, not the audience. You're not just reacting to the canvas, you're painting it. This doesn't take hours. It can be 10 to 15 minutes. A few deep breaths, a journal prompt, a moment of movement, a few words of gratitude. Visualize your top priorities. Speak them out loud. Train your subconscious to expect them. These actions are simple, but they're sacred. Because in doing them, you're doing more than just starting your day. You're shaping your identity. Every time you prime your mind, you're reinforcing the belief that you lead your state. You're reminding yourself that your thoughts, your emotions, your focus, they're not random, they're trainable. Most people spend their lives trying to fix their days after they've already gone wrong. But the secret isn't in damage control, it's in preparation. Prime your mind before the day begins. You won't just survive it, you'll shape it, lead it, and thrive in it. That's the difference between those who live by design and those who live by default. So take your mornings seriously. They're not small, they're not optional, they're foundational. They are where your energy, your mindset, and your direction begin. And if you take control of them, you begin to take control of your entire life. One powerful, intentional morning at a time. There's a dangerous lie that keeps people stuck, the belief that they need to feel motivated in order to act, that they need to be inspired, hyped up, or emotionally ready before they move. But the truth is, motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes like the wind. It's fleeting, emotional, and based on how things feel in the moment. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision. It's consistent. It's unshaken by mood. When it comes to building a powerful morning routine or rising early every day to set your life in motion, it's not motivation you need. It's discipline. Discipline is doing what needs to be done, even when you don't feel like doing it. It's the inner strength to rise when the bed feels too comfortable, to push forward when your body wants to stay still, to commit even when there's no audience, no applause, no immediate reward. Because true growth doesn't happen when you're in the mood. It happens when you move anyway. That's the difference between those who try and those who transform. When you wake up early and claim your morning, you don't do it because you're always excited to do it. You do it because you made a commitment to the person you want to become. Motivation is driven by emotion. Discipline is driven by identity. It says, this is who I am, and this is what I do. I feel like it or not. That's where real power lies. You become reliable, consistent, and unstoppable. Not because every day feels amazing, but because you've chosen a higher standard for your life. Every time you act out of discipline instead of emotion, you cast a vote for the version of yourself that you're building, and those votes add up. Each morning you get up instead of sleeping in. Each time you follow through on your routine instead of skipping it, you reinforce a deep message to your brain, I'm in control. That message becomes a belief. That belief becomes a habit. That habit becomes a lifestyle. That lifestyle becomes your destiny. People who rely on motivation burn out. They start strong but fade fast. Because as soon as the feelings disappear, so does the action. They're driven by the high of the moment, not the strength of commitment. People who live with discipline, they endure. They show up even when it's hard. They understand that consistency is more important than intensity. One massive burst of effort doesn't change your life. It's the small, repeated acts of discipline over time that create transformation. When you wake up early, you're not just beating the sun. You're beating the part of yourself that wants comfort more than growth. That's the battle. Every single morning, there's a choice, the easy road or the committed road. One leads to regret. The other leads to pride, not pride in a loud, arrogant way, but pride in knowing that you did what you said you do. Pride in knowing that you're keeping your word to yourself. And that kind of pride builds self-respect, the foundation of all confidence. Most people don't lack motivation, they lack habits. And habits are formed through repetition, not inspiration. You don't need to feel like doing something for it to be meaningful. In fact, the most meaningful actions are often the ones that feel hardest in the moment. Waking up early, working out, reading, journaling, reflecting. These are not always glamorous. They are powerful. They shape your character. They train your mind. They sharpen your focus. Discipline doesn't mean perfection. It means consistency with purpose. It means understanding that even on the off days, especially on the off days, you show up even if it's at 70%, even if you're tired, even if it's messy, because the act of showing up matters more than how perfectly you perform. The identity you're building gets stronger every time you choose to follow through. Think of discipline like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more you ignore it, the weaker it becomes. At first, it's hard. It hurts. It takes effort. But over time, it becomes second nature. The early mornings become normal. The resistance fades. The internal debate quiets down because you're no longer negotiating with yourself. You're leading yourself. That's the switch. That's where power comes from. There's also a false belief that discipline is restrictive, that it steals your freedom. But the truth is the opposite. Discipline creates freedom. When you're disciplined with your time, your habits, your energy, you free yourself from chaos, stress, regret, and inconsistency. You build structure, you build momentum, you build results. And nothing is more freeing than the confidence that comes from knowing you are in charge of your own life. You don't need to wait for a perfect morning to start building this. You start right where you are with one choice, one decision. Set the alarm a little earlier. Get out of bed before your mind talks you out of it. Move your body. Clear your head. Prime your focus. These actions may be small in the moment, but they send a loud message. I lead myself. I keep my word. I build my life. You'll feel resistance. That's part of it. But that resistance is your training ground. That's where strength is forged. Over time, what was once difficult becomes automatic. The same way brushing your teeth doesn't take motivation, neither will your early mornings, because they're no longer tasks. They're part of who you are. You become someone who rises with purpose, someone who doesn't need hype to move, someone who follows through. And when that becomes your standard, your results change, your confidence changes, and your life begins to move in a new direction. So stop waiting for motivation. Stop chasing feelings. Start choosing. Start leading. Start acting. Let your discipline speak louder than your doubt. Let your consistency overcome your excuses. Because the person you become through disciplined action is far greater than the one who waits around for the perfect mood to begin. That person is focused. That person is dependable. That person is unstoppable. And that person is you. If you study people who consistently operate at the highest level, whether it's in business, sports, creative arts, or leadership, you'll find one thing in common. They don't leave their mornings to chance. They don't just stumble into their day. They craft it. They take command of the first moments after waking up because they understand that how you start determines how you continue. And how you continue shapes what you create. High performers know that performance doesn't begin when the meetings start, the calls come in, or the workday officially begins. It starts long before that in the quiet, intentional space of the morning. The average person wakes up and immediately starts reacting. They're in a rush. They check their phone, they feel behind, and they start the day in stress mode. But high performers do the opposite. They deliberately create time in the morning to tune their mind, body, and emotions before the world even knows they're awake. They use those early hours as a training ground, a space to develop clarity, energy, and momentum before facing external demands. It's not about having extra time. It's about what they do with the time they already have. They prioritize the first hour because they understand the ripple effect it has on every decision and every outcome that follows. Owning your morning isn't about complexity. It's about intention. High performers don't wait for the day to dictate their focus. They establish their focus. They don't wake up asking, what do I need to deal with today? They ask, what do I want to create today? That shift in mindset is profound. One is reactive, the other is visionary. When you claim your morning, you're not just preparing for tasks. You're preparing to lead. You're setting your psychology, physiology, and your perspective in motion in a way that empowers everything else you do. These individuals understand the deep connection between physical energy and mental performance. They move their bodies in the morning, not to check off a box, because they know movement generates momentum. Physical movement triggers biochemical changes that prime the brain for learning, decision-making, and creative thinking. Whether it's a workout, a walk, stretching, or breathwork, they get the body engaged early because they want to be fully present for the day ahead, not dragging through it. They treat energy as a responsibility, not a mystery. High performers also guard the mental space of the morning like it's sacred. Let distractions flood in. They don't allow social media, emails, or news feeds to hijack their clarity. Instead, they focus on aligning themselves with their goals, their values, and their intentions. They reflect, they visualize, they journal, they plan. Not because it's a checklist, but because it's a recalibration, a way to step into alignment with their bigger vision. They don't hope the day will go well. They engineer it to go well, starting from the inside out. The most overlooked habits of these individuals is presence. High performers aren't just productive, they're present. And that presence is built in the morning. They don't rush through their routines like a chore. They slow down, even if briefly, to check in with themselves. They ask questions that matter. Who do I need to be today? What energy do I want to carry? What distractions must I remove? That level of clarity doesn't just improve performance. It creates consistency. Consistency is what separates the good from the exceptional. They understand the compounding effect of small disciplines. One solid morning might not change your life, but 100 solid mornings, that's a new identity. That's a new trajectory. That's when mastery starts to take root. These people don't rise early and own their morning once in a while. They build the habit so deeply into their lifestyle that it becomes automatic. They don't need to think about whether they'll show up. They just do. That's not motivation, it's identity. It's a belief so deeply ingrained that the actions become who they are. It's also important to understand that high performers are not immune to struggle. They wake up tired sometimes. They feel resistance. They have hard days. But the difference is they've trained themselves to lead through those feelings. They've built the emotional endurance to move through discomfort instead of waiting for it to disappear. And that resilience is forged every morning when they show up, regardless of how they feel. That consistency gives them an edge, because while others are waiting to feel ready, they're already in motion. Your morning is also a form of respect for your goals, for your purpose, and for your future self. It says, I value my vision enough to start my day with intention. When you do that consistently, you start to believe in yourself at a deeper level, not because you heard a motivational quote, but because you have evidence, real lived proof that you're the kind of person who follows through, and that belief bleeds into every area of your life. These high-performing individuals also understand the importance of boundaries. They say no to things that don't belong in their mornings. No to noise, no to meaningless scrolling, no to rushing, because they know that every yes to distraction is a no to intention. They design their mornings around their highest priorities, and they protect that design with fierce commitment. They know that structure is not the enemy of freedom. It's the foundation of it. You don't need to be a CEO, a pro athlete, or a public figure to live like this. Anyone can own their morning. Anyone can rise early, move their body, prime their mind, prepare their heart. Anyone can start their day with alignment instead of anxiety. The tools are simple. What makes the difference is your willingness to use them consistently. That's where transformation begins. If you want to elevate your life, start with a great start the morning. Take command of that space. Own it. Refuse to drift into the day without a plan, without energy, without clarity. Do what the top 1% do. Not because you're trying to copy someone, but because you're choosing to lead your own life like it matters. Because it does. How you begin is how you continue. And how you continue determines who become. So rise with purpose. Lead your morning. You'll start to notice slowly at first, then all at once that the day, the results, and even your future start responding to the way you choose to show up. Every action you take in the morning sends a signal, not just to the world, but to yourself. Those actions communicate a message about who you are, what you value, and what you expect from yourself. Most people think habits are just routines, unconscious behaviors that help us move through the day. But the truth is, morning habits are far more than just routine. They are statements of identity. Every choice you make in that first hour after waking up reflects the kind of person you believe yourself to be, or the kind of person you're becoming. You wake up and reach for your phone before you've even left the bed. That's not just a habit. It's an identity cue. It says, I'm someone who consumes before I create. When you snooze your alarm 3 times, it tells your subconscious, I delay discomfort even when I've made a commitment. On the other hand, when you get up with intention, hydrate, move your body, and focus your mind, those actions aren't just productive, they're powerful. They say, I'm someone who leads myself, I follow through, I show up when it's hard. This is the core truth. Identity is not fixed. You don't become confident, focused, or resilient by thinking about it. You become it by living it repeatedly through small, consistent actions. Especially the ones no one sees, especially in the quiet moments when it's just you, your mind, and your decision. Morning habits give you the clearest window into who you are training yourself to be. Not the version you talk about, but the version you act on. And the mind pays very close attention to those actions because your brain builds identity not from what you hope for, but from what you repeatedly do. Every morning is a fresh opportunity to make decisions that align with your highest self, to vote for the version of you that's intentional, disciplined, visionary, and focused. And the beauty of this process is that it's not about perfection. It's not about never slipping up. It's about consistently reinforcing the belief, I lead my life on purpose. When you begin your day with meaningful habits, you're not just preparing for tasks, you're preparing your identity. You're building trust with yourself, the most important relationship you'll ever have. Your brain is always watching, always recording. And each time you rise early, each time you choose movement over delay, presence over distraction, purpose over passivity, you send a clear signal. This is who I am now. Over time, that becomes automatic. That becomes normal. And eventually, you don't have to force discipline. It flows from your identity. You no longer think, I should do this. You think, this is what I do. This is who I am. This is why small changes in the morning create massive shifts in life. Because those small changes, when repeated with intention, reshape how you see yourself. When how you see yourself changes, everything else follows. Your standards rise. Your expectations rise. Behavior changes not because someone told you to, but because you no longer tolerate living out of alignment with the person you're becoming. It's not about having time. It's about having integrity with your identity. Every moment you spend leading yourself in the morning reinforces that integrity. There's a reason why the first hour of your day holds such power. It's when your mind is still fresh. Your subconscious is more open. Your energy hasn't yet been scattered. It's the ideal moment to create alignment, to move with clarity instead of confusion, to begin with courage instead of hesitation. What you practice in that first hour builds the foundation for how you'll show up in the hours that follow. If you practice presence, you'll carry presence. If you practice intention, you'll lead with intention. If you practice avoidance, that too becomes your state. We often underestimate how much our habits shape our future. But look around, your current reality is already a reflection of your repeated behaviors. And if you want a new reality, you don't need to wait for some big external change. You just need to begin acting in ways that are consistent with the identity you want to embody. Morning habits are the fastest, most powerful way to do that. They create rhythm. They create stability. More than anything, they create evidence. Evidence that you are who you say you are, and nothing builds confidence faster than evidence. You don't have to do a dozen things every morning. It's not about complexity, it's about alignment. Even one intentional habit done with consistency begins to shift your self-image. One habit can change how you see yourself. It might be waking up when the alarm rings. It might be journaling for 5 minutes. It might be stretching, hydrating, or reading. The key is not what it is. The key is what it means to you. If the habit says, I care about my growth, or I lead my day, then every time you complete it, you confirm that belief. That's why we must treat these moments seriously. Because every morning, whether we acknowledge it or not, we are training ourselves. We are either reinforcing the habits of avoidance, delay, and reactivity, or we are reinforcing leadership, vision, and alignment. The real battle isn't between you and time. It's between your current identity and your future identity. And the morning is your arena. It's your proving ground. It's where you remind yourself who you are and who you are becoming. You may not control every outcome in your life, but you absolutely control how you show up for yourself each morning. That power is yours. And when you choose to show up powerfully over and over, your identity transforms, not through luck, not through a sudden breakthrough, but through the quiet, disciplined practice of living in alignment with who you choose to be. That's what morning habits offer, not just better days, but a better, stronger, more grounded you. One choice at a time, habit at a time, one identity shaping morning at a time is a kind of power that most people never experience. Not because it's hidden or out of reach, but because it exists in a place they never go: silence. In the early morning, before the noise begins, before the world opens its inbox, before the pressure of schedules and the speed of obligations takes over, there is quiet, and that quiet, if you use it wisely, can be your most powerful time of day, because in that silence, you can actually hear yourself. You can reconnect. You can think clearly, feel honestly, and make choices that aren't driven by the distractions around you, but by the vision within you. For most people, silence is uncomfortable. We've been trained to fill every gap with something: music, conversation, notifications, entertainment, anything to avoid stillness. But that avoidance comes at a cost, because when you constantly distract yourself, you cut yourself off from your deepest clarity. You lose access to your real thoughts, the ones that matter, the ones that guide, the ones that remind you who you are and what you're here to build. That's why high achievers and deeply centered individuals alike protect their early mornings, because they've discovered what most never realize: that the quiet is not empty, it's full of answers. When you rise before the world gets loud, your mind is clear. It's not yet flooded with input. It hasn't been hijacked by outside agendas. It's clean, sharp, and receptive. That moment is your opening. Not to rush, but to reconnect, to check in with your own direction. You get to ask yourself in peace, what do I need today? What matters most today? What emotions am I carrying? Am I going? And am I headed there intentionally? These aren't questions you can answer when you're already knee deep in other people's noise. They require space. And space is only found when you create it deliberately. Quiet time in the morning is not about doing nothing. It's about doing what matters most before anything else has the chance to interfere. It's a reset, a recalibration. It's where you shift from being pulled by life to leading life. Whether it's 5 minutes or 30, what matters is how you use that space. It can be reflection, meditation, journaling, prayer, visualization, or simply deep breathing and presence. The method isn't as important as the intention. The point is to connect with yourself so that everything you do that day flows from alignment, not urgency. There's something sacred about being awake while the rest of the world sleeps. Not in a mystical sense, but in a deeply human one. You're not distracted. You're not comparing. You're not chasing. You're just present. And in that presence, you can finally hear the quiet truths you've been ignoring: what you really want, what needs to change. Habits are silently shaping your future. That awareness is not something you stumble into. It's something you cultivate, and the morning is the best time to do it. This is the time when you can think strategically. You can step back from the noise and actually design your day instead of reacting to it. You can look ahead and decide what energy you want to bring into your relationships, your work, your goals. And when you operate from that kind of self-leadership, you become unstoppable, not because things get easier, but because you get more centered. That's what quiet time gives you: not control over everything, but control over yourself, over how you show up, over how you respond, over how you lead. Some of the most successful and self-aware people in the world don't start their days by checking the news or scrolling their feeds. They start by checking in with themselves. They use the quiet to prepare their mind, to reset their focus, to remember what really matters. They understand that productivity without clarity is just busy work. It's movement without direction. It might impress the world for a moment, but it doesn't fulfill the soul. Quiet time makes sure that your energy isn't just being spent, but being invested in the right places. In a world that rewards speed, choosing stillness can feel countercultural. But that's exactly why it's so powerful. Because most people are moving too fast to notice when they've gone off course. But when you begin your day with silence, you develop the awareness to course correct early. You don't wait until burnout. You don't wait until everything's on fire. You sense misalignment before it becomes a crisis. That sensitivity is a superpower, and it's cultivated in the quiet. You also begin to trust yourself more. When you sit with yourself daily, even for a few minutes, you build internal dialogue. You're no longer relying only on outside validation or input. You start to value your own voice. You begin to notice patterns. You see what triggers your stress, what inspires your creativity, what brings you joy. And over time, that self-knowledge becomes guidance. You start to make better decisions, not because you learned a new hack, but because you listened, you paid attention, you connected. This is the space where your long-term vision can breathe, where you can zoom out, remember your goals, and ask, am I acting in alignment with the person I want to become? That level of thinking doesn't happen when you're jumping from notification to notification. It happens in stillness. It happens when you give yourself the time to think before you're forced to react. And that's why quiet time in the morning is not a luxury. It's a necessity, not for everyone else, but for you. If you're serious about leading your life rather than being led by it, you don't need hours of silence. You need just enough space to hear yourself again, to hear your breath, to hear your thoughts, to hear the wisdom that only comes when the noise fades away. Because underneath the busy schedules, the endless goals, and the constant pressure, there's a still, calm voice that knows exactly what you need. You just have to slow down long enough to hear it. The world will always try to speed you up, to demand your attention, to rush your energy. But if you want to lead yourself powerfully, you have to protect that morning quiet. Treat it like a meeting with your highest self. Show up for it with consistency, with presence, with respect. Because how you treat those first few moments of the day determines how you'll treat the rest of it. And if you choose to begin in power, in calm, in alignment, the rest of your day begins to follow that lead. The quiet isn't empty. It's not a void. It's not wasted time. It's the most valuable space you have. It's where real clarity is born. And clarity creates confidence. And confidence, backed by aligned action, is what changes everything. The quiet is not weakness. It's strength, refined. And when you start your day from that place, you're no longer chasing power, carrying it with you. The direction of your day is set in the very first few moments. That's why what you do early, and more importantly, how you do it matters. Each day, either drifting into routine by default or stepping into your day by design. And the people who consistently grow, lead, perform at high levels don't wait for things to go well. They begin by creating the conditions for their day to unfold with power. It starts with intentional action. Not big, dramatic gestures, but small, deliberate movements that tell your mind and body, I'm in control today. A win doesn't need to be a major breakthrough. It can be something as small as getting out of bed the moment your alarm goes off. It might be hydrating your body with water before pouring coffee. It might be taking a minute to breathe deeply before touching your phone. Each of these small choices may seem insignificant on their own, but together, they form the foundation of momentum. They are micro wins, and when you collect enough micro wins, they turn into macro confidence. They build a kind of inner energy that can't be faked, because it comes from lived experience. The reason intentional action is so powerful is because it shifts your identity and emotion. You don't feel like a leader because you said a few affirmations. You feel like a leader because you acted like one. You don't gain confidence from thinking about your goals. You gain confidence from stepping toward them. Every time you act with intention, you reinforce the belief that you are someone who follows through, someone who takes ownership, someone who shapes their own day rather than reacting to it. The morning is your launchpad, and what you do in that space sets the tone for the rest of the day. That's why high performers often follow routines. Not because they're robotic, because they've learned that structure creates freedom. When you begin with discipline, the rest of the day feels less scattered. When you begin with clarity, distractions lose their grip. When you begin with small wins, you accumulate momentum. Momentum is everything. The hardest part of anything is the start. That's where friction lives. The body is still waking up. The mind is still foggy, and it's easy to rationalize delay. But intentional action interrupts that loop. It cuts through hesitation. It tells your nervous system, we're not drifting today, we're deciding. That moment of decision, whether it's stepping into a cold shower, putting on your workout shoes, writing out your goals, whatever it is, it wakes you up, not just physically, but mentally. It reminds you that power is something you create, not wait for. People who start their mornings in reaction mode, scrolling social media, checking emails, rushing to catch up, enter the day already behind. They start without clarity, without focus, without direction. And then they wonder why they feel overwhelmed, scattered, or defeated by noon. The people who win the day are the ones who start by winning the first 30 minutes. They know the secret isn't in doing more, it's in doing the right things early. And the right things don't have to be complicated. You don't need an elaborate checklist or a 6-step miracle morning. You need intentionality. Wake up and ask yourself, what do I need to feel strong today? Maybe it's movement. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's simply organizing your space. The key is to act with clarity, not autopilot. Because when your actions match your intentions, your confidence builds naturally. No hype required. You begin to trust yourself more because you're no longer talking about what you'll do. You're doing, and that trust, the self-respect that comes from keeping your word to yourself is what carries you through the difficult parts of the day. That's why these early wins matter so much. It's not just about productivity. It's about identity. Every intentional action is a vote for the kind of person you're becoming. And when those votes stack up, you don't just change what you do, you change who you are. One of the biggest myths about performance and achievement is that it takes massive effort all at once. But the truth is, most consistent high performers are rarely the ones doing the most at one time. They're the ones doing a small number of things very well, very consistently, and that consistency is built on rituals. Rituals that start the day in alignment. Actions that tell their brain and body, this is what we do. This is how we start. This is how we lead. When you build your morning on intention, your entire day becomes easier to navigate. Problems still come. Challenges still arise. You meet them with more clarity, more emotional stability, and more mental resilience because you started from a place of strength. That's the power of winning early. It gives you a platform, a strong emotional and psychological base from which to make better decisions. Every time you skip this and go straight into reaction mode, you're gambling. You're hoping you'll feel motivated later. You're hoping the day will calm down on its own. Those who win consistently don't rely on hope. They rely on structure. They rely on clarity. They rely on the feeling that comes from doing the right thing, even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. Because those moments are where you shape your future. If you've been struggling with inconsistency, it's not because you're lazy or broken. It's because you haven't locked in the first few wins of the day. That's the reset point. That's where your energy, mindset, and behavior all begin to synchronize. The beauty is you don't need to overhaul your whole life. You just need to win the morning, and you don't need to win the whole morning. You just need to win the start. Intentional action is the difference between surviving the day and leading it. It's not about being perfect. It's about being committed. It's about doing small things with great awareness. That's how you build momentum. That's how you shift identity. That's how you move from feeling stuck to feeling strong. Every day is an opportunity. And the door to that opportunity opens with the first conscious choice you make. So make it count. Decide before the world decides for you. Move before motivation arrives. Lead before the pressure hits. And know this, it's the small, repeated, intentional actions you take every morning, not the big breakthroughs, that shape your character, fuel your vision, and transform your life from the inside out. Every single day is a new race. And just like any race, how you start determines how you run. The morning is not just the beginning of your day. It is the momentum maker. It's the spark. It's the ignition switch. That first hour is the emotional and mental launchpad that determines your pace, your focus, and your energy for everything that follows. If you stumble into your day unfocused and unprepared, you are already behind. If you enter with purpose, with clarity, with energy, you set yourself up to move through the day with power. Momentum is not accidental. It is built. It is built by action, repetition, clarity, and commitment. There's no better time to build it than the morning, because in the morning, your mind is fresh. You are not yet weighed down by decisions. You haven't been scattered by distractions. Your willpower is strongest. That's the moment you seize. Not tomorrow, not after you feel motivated. Right now, while the day is still quiet, while the world is still warming up, that's your advantage. But here's the truth, most people don't use it. They give that precious window away. They hit snooze. They check their phones. They wander aimlessly through the first hour of their day without direction. And by the time they try to get traction, they're already pulled into someone else's urgency. Their mood is already shaped by notifications. Their attention hijacked by noise, and their energy scattered. That is not how momentum is built. That's how it's lost. The individuals who perform at their best, mentally, physically, emotionally, understand something most people overlook. Momentum is not a mystery. It's a product. It's the result of a series of deliberate choices made early, not big, heroic efforts. Simple, consistent aligned actions. Movement creates energy. Energy creates focus. Focus creates progress. Progress creates belief. That's momentum. And it always begins with the first steps you take. When you use your morning to move with purpose, even just a little, you prime your nervous system for performance. You teach your body to wake up with intention. You train your mind to expect discipline, clarity, and direction, whether that's through a workout, a walk, writing down your goals, breathing deeply, simply sitting in silence with your thoughts. The point is not the routine, it's the momentum. It's the shift from passive to active, from reactive to intentional. What happens to so many people is that they wait for motivation. They wait for clarity. They wait to feel ready. And in that waiting, their energy stalls, their mind dulls. Their potential for the day slips away. But momentum doesn't come from waiting. It comes from moving, even small movement. One simple act of alignment, like getting out of bed without hesitation, making your bed, stretching your body, hydrating your system, reviewing your goals. Those are not small things. They are signals to your brain that today, in motion, you are not stuck. You are not waiting. You are building. Because here's the deeper truth. The way you start your day is the way you teach yourself to live. If you begin in a state of overwhelm, rushing, and chaos, that becomes your default. You start to believe that's how life has to feel. But if you begin with alignment, clarity, and forward action, you build belief in something better. You build belief in yourself. You build belief that you are capable of directing your energy rather than being ruled by it. And that belief over time becomes identity. You go from someone who tries to someone who does. You shift from thinking of momentum as something external to something you create. And when you see yourself as a creator of momentum, everything changes. You don't wait for ideal conditions. You become the condition. You bring the clarity, you bring the energy, you bring the fire, and you do it every single morning, not perfectly, but consistently. There will be days you don't feel like it. Days where your body is tired, your mind is foggy, life feels heavy. Those days matter even more, because that's when you prove to yourself that you are not driven by how you feel, you are driven by who you are. Momentum built on feelings is inconsistent, but momentum built on values, built on identity, built on the choice to begin strong, that momentum is lasting. It is stable, it is resilient. Think of every morning like a runway. If you don't gather speed at the beginning, you can't lift off. If you build that speed deliberately, with purpose, with energy, with clarity, you take off. You rise above the noise. You rise above the overwhelm. You become the one who leads, not the one who chases. That shift, leading instead of reacting, is what creates power. It's what separates the ones who move with momentum from the ones who are constantly trying to catch up. The world doesn't slow down to let you find your rhythm. You have to create your own, and that rhythm starts with the beat you set in the morning. Are you leading your energy, or are you letting the world drag it in all directions? Are you building momentum on purpose, or are you hoping it shows up? You creating the tone of your day, or are you absorbing everyone else's? You have more control than you think. And it starts with the next morning, the next moment. You don't need to change everything. You don't need a perfect system. You just need to move intentionally, do one thing that shifts your energy forward, then another, stack the wins. Protect your first hour like it's sacred, because it is. That hour holds the power to set your pace, your mindset, your emotional tone. So stop waiting. Stop drifting. Start building. Use your mornings to ignite movement. Use them to shape your thoughts. Use them to build momentum, not just for the day, but for your life. Because once you understand that your morning is your momentum, you stop treating it like a warm-up. You treat it like the main event. And when you do that, every day becomes a new opportunity to lead yourself with power, to lead yourself with clarity, to lead yourself with fire. And that leadership over time turns into unstoppable momentum. Momentum you created, momentum you carry, momentum that turns your goals from distant visions into daily lived reality, one morning at a time.